So, a big welcome everyone to the Talis Aspire product update for May 2023. My name is David Renfrey and I am the Senior Customer Success Consultant here at Technology for Sage, supporting Talis. I'm also joined today by my colleague Scott Gibbons, Head of Product, and I'm starting to think I should put Scott's name on these slides actually, to the introduction so everyone knows who he is. But yeah, Scott will be supporting me as we go through today, talking about the various things we have in the pipeline. If you haven't attended before, just to let you know, the product update is a webinar which we run most months, and it's our chance to sort of update you on what we've currently been working on and what we're planning for the future. We didn't actually hold a product update last month because we held our TFS Insight event in person in Birmingham. So a big thank you to all of those of you who attended, and we appreciate the positive feedback we've received since. I will just mention that some of the recordings of the sessions from the Insight event will be available on the Technology from Sage website later this week. And if you are signed up to the Talis Aspire newsletters, then you should be seeing links to those when you receive those newsletters next week. So on to today's agenda, and it's fairly sort of typical agenda for what we do for a product update. So we will be talking about the recent releases that we have been making. We will be talking about the upcoming releases, so things that you can expect to see from us over the next few weeks. We will be updating you on the reviews discovery work that we've been doing this week and we'll be carrying out for the next couple of weeks or so as well. We will be providing you with an update on the work we're doing to upgrade everyone to Google Analytics 4. And we have had a number of queries over that over the last couple of weeks, so hopefully that will sort of answer the questions that some of you might have. And we'll just be updating you briefly on some new staff that have joined us since we last spoke to you. So hopefully that's all clear to everyone. As ever, if you have any questions, do just drop them in the chat and we will attempt to answer them as we go through, or we will have time for questions at the end. So first item on the agenda is recent releases. So this basically covers everything that we've been doing since we last spoke to you a couple of months ago. And most of the development work in terms of things that have actually been released since we last spoke to you have revolved around the LTI 1.3 integration. So we have talked about this over the last couple of updates, but essentially we identified that there were a few updates that we needed to make from our end to cater for all the various different rollover scenarios that are available, depending on whether you're using Blackboard or Moodle or Canvas. Particularly, we had identified an issue that for Blackboard users, when you were rolling over Blackboard, then the links to your content, Talis Aspire content, particularly section links, those links weren't necessarily updating as you had been expecting. So we have made a couple of releases since we last spoke to you, and that issue should now be resolved so that the LTI link will be pointing at the most recent version of the lists, which of course is one of the benefits of 1.3. There is now some additional work going on around a sort of UI change and how that's going to appear to the end user in terms of the interface. Scott, I don't know if you want to add anything at this point.
The UI changes are just to make it a little bit easier for lecturers who want to link, academics want to link other lists than the most recent one. So it's more for those sort of educators where you want to link an older list rather than the most recent list, and we're just doing a little bit of work around that. But the bulk of the work on the 1.3 upgrade, i.e. the rollover and making that work effectively, is all done.
Brilliant. Thank you for confirming. And obviously that's very timely because we know that a few of you have rolled over already. A lot of you are planning to do so over the next couple of months or so. And we already have a lot of those dates in our calendar to look out for sort of rollover dates and issues going forward. Something that you might all find useful, those of you who are either in the process of implementing LTI 1.3 or have recently implemented it, we have updated one of our support articles literally this morning. And so this is an article that was already live, which talks about the LTI 1.3 integration. But what we've added to this as of this morning, we have some videos actually demonstrating how you can expect this to look in Blackboard. So these have been put together by Tim Hodson. our head of customer success. There's one here for Blackboard. There's one for Canvas. As you will notice, if you're using Moodle, it's coming very soon. And what he's also done, if you scroll a bit further down, it talks very much more about the rollover process and your options at the point of rollover, and also the differences between 1.1 and 1.3. So if you are shortly planning on rolling over and you've already installed 1.3 or you're in the process of doing so, it would be worth sharing this support article with your IT team and just sort of circulate it among yourselves so that you know exactly what the expected behavior is. So that's Blackboard, that's Moodle, and that's Canvas. And the link is there on the screen now, or it will be if I go back to the slides. So that's what you need to search for in our support site, or we can drop it in the chat actually at the end of the session. So yeah, some demo videos there on how all of that's going to work. Can you please add the link to the chat? Do you know what, Nick? Let's just do that right now, and then that will save us forgetting at the end. There we go. So that's the article you will need to view those videos from Tim Hodson about expected behavior. As always with LTI issues, if your question is not catered for outside the support materials we've got there, please just do raise a ticket and we can talk it through with you, because of course everyone's circumstances are different. Okay, so moving on to upcoming releases. So if you've attended any of our recent product update webinars, some of these should be familiar to you already because they're things we have been trailing for a couple of months, but there has been progress in all of them. So the main one that's coming over the next few weeks, as you'll know, we are planning a change to the add resource feature, so that at the point when a user clicks on add resource, we would like to give you the ability to search your own discovery layer at that point, rather than searching the Nielsen book data integration, which we currently have. So the update on that is that, well, the work is still ongoing. There's nothing I can show you at this point, but what we have been doing is actually plugging in some institution settings from universities we've been working with. We've been plugging those into some of our demo tenancies and just having a play to make sure that we are getting the results back that we are looking for. And so obviously that work is ongoing at the moment. Okay, it's apologies. Some of you were saying you didn't get the link. I think I see why now. Sorry, everyone. That is my fault because the settings on Zoom were different. You should now have it. Yeah, so that's being tested in some of our demo tenancies at the moment, and we in the services team have passed on some contact details to the product team of people that we think will be willing to support with that. So again, it's ongoing. We hope to have more updates for you next month. If you are interested in implementing that once it's available, we will be needing some information from you in terms of API keys, you know, so that we can actually drive that integration with your Primo or your OCLC or your EDS, whatever you're using. But again, as and when we reach that point, we will be providing you with more information. I can tell you that the support calls I've done over the last few weeks, whenever this has come up, it seems to be a really sort of popular enhancement that we're planning. So yeah, that's good to hear. And yeah, it's still in the pipeline. It will be coming soon. Other work we are planning at the moment. So if you are an OCLC WorldCat user, then we are currently looking at, in the reviews area of Talis Aspire, we are currently looking at an integration between Talis Aspire and OCLC, so that at the point where you find an item that's on a list that's being reviewed, if you decide you would like to buy that, we're going to give you the ability to add that directly to the ordering area within OCLC WorldCat. So again, that's something we're working on at the moment. We expect to have a prototype in about a month's time, and obviously as soon as we've got something that we can share with you, we will be doing so. I'll come back to your question there in a moment, Evelyn. We are still working on the importances that we talked about, this idea that for universities who would like to make importances mandatory, we will give you the ability to do that. We did actually do some mock-ups of this at the Insight conference. So those of you that visited the product stand, thank you for the feedback you gave us, because we gave you sort of 2 or 3 alternative ways in how we think we could implement this. So it was really helpful to get your feedback and thoughts on what you thought would be the best way forward there. For those of you that are using the DCS integration within Talis Aspire, we have identified a couple of improvements we could make at the point of rollover. And obviously this is very relevant because we're entering the DCS rollover in the next couple of weeks. So a big thank you to University of Nottingham for their input on this, who've been speaking to our development team. And essentially what we're looking to do is, we know at the moment that there are occasions where when you withdraw old versions of scans in your DCS integration, so maybe ones that were originally requested 2 or 3 years ago, that's actually having the effect of breaking the link to the live version within Talis Aspire. So we've identified a couple of ways that we could address that. And again, we'll be updating you all as and when that is available. And of course, alongside all of that, we have our continuous improvement. So you know, which basically covers all the things that we can't fit into the headlines in terms of upcoming releases. So, you know, that might be accessibility improvements under the hood, or it could be anything else that comes out of requests for features from support calls. But as and when those things are released, we will be telling you about them. Again, there's a couple of questions there. Scott, do you want to add anything to what I've said there when I read the questions?
No, I think we've got obviously quite a lot on our plate there to take us through into the early part of the summer. The next sort of takes us into July with the OCLC work. So, and we just getting through stuff. We've grown our team in development team as well. So we've got a new developer joined us recently, which just means we can get through things a little bit quicker as well, which is always good.
Brilliant, thank you. So there are a couple of questions here. I'm never sure how to pronounce this, but how does it cope with Ferberized records on Primo, where the print and ebook are on the same Primo record? So that would relate to the searching your own discovery layer on add resource. The honest answer is I don't know, because I haven't seen it yet. Scott, can you provide an answer?
Well, I haven't seen it, but my experience of the Primo API is it delivers you each item individually. But then you can do something with the API to make it select Ferberized records, but it will give you the individual item. So if it's an ebook, it'll give you the ebook. If it's print, it'll give you the print book. I don't believe it draws the Ferberized records automatically from the API. So it is a little bit of a funny one, but we've just started working with that. So we'll see what comes back and what we can do with it. And of course, a link back to the item is probably the most important bit in some respects, because that will link you back to, if users want to go and see it, they click on the link back, and that should take them into the Ferberized record and they link back. But we will see what we get, Evelyn. But it'll be clear once we've got it clear. We'll let you know.
Yeah, so I think the answer to that one is watch this space.
we kind of know what it does, but it's what we do with it when we get it in. So we're just we're just experimenting with Primo. We've had a few people send us API keys, which is really helpful. Thank you for those that have done that.
Okay. And then there was a query about, I mentioned importances to our team, and people felt if we were going to make them mandatory, we might want to reword what they are. Is that something that can be done at tenancy level currently, or are they fixed? So Hazel, when you say rewording, do you mean actually changing the terminology that you are currently using for your importances? Because if I've understood, yes, that's right. Okay, thank you. So at the moment, yeah, you would need to raise a support ticket with us, and we can look at rewording them for you. As you might have heard us say on some recent product update webinars, we are looking at doing self-service later on this year. And so that might be an example possibly of something where we could turn that power over to you. But at the moment, if you need any changes to them, just raise a support ticket with us and we can get that done for you. Okay, thanks. You're welcome. So that's it in terms of upcoming releases. Just wanted to update you on the reviews discovery work we're doing. So again, we have trailed this on previous product update webinars. But for those of you who are new to it, essentially this is a chance for the product team to speak directly to users who are using reviews. And the thinking behind this is we will be looking at designing a new reviews interface to be available later this year. But as with anything we build, it's got to be relevant to what you need. So at the moment, there are a lot of conversations happening between the product team and users. I think we've got 6 universities booked in for this week for reviews calls, and it's going to be around 20 institutions altogether, and they will be in UK, Australia, Canada. So we're talking across our customer base. So a big thank you to those of you who have already inputted into that. The thinking is that the results for this will be pulled together sometime in mid-June with a view to then sort of, saying, okay, this is what our users have told us and this is what we should be prioritizing. And actually, I had a support call this morning where I had another feature request for review. So Scott doesn't know it yet, but that's coming his way. There may also potentially be a second round of conversations with customers later in the year, just around the sort of user interface. So, you've told us what features you want, but how should this look? But again, we will keep you updated as that goes. I think the takeaway from this is that we're looking to get this right. We don't want to rush this out in July or August if it's not going to fit your needs. So this will be a process over several months, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again. But yeah,
I add a reassurance as well to people. If we do change the reviews this significantly based on discovery, and I don't know yet, we've only spoke to 5 people so far, but if it does change significantly, we'll give people a period when you can switch over, so you won't automatically get switched to a new system in the middle of your busiest ordering period or something like that. It'll be a place where we can manage movement over if there's going to be a big change. And at the moment, we don't know what the change is going to be, but I suspect it's going to look quite different from the first 5 conversations of what people are saying.
Okay.
If you are on those discoveries as well, don't be afraid about criticizing it. The whole point of those discoveries is to find out what you don't like about it. So don't hold back, because we want to really know what you don't like about the system. I'm sure you won't. Most people aren't afraid of telling us, but we always just like to make sure we don't have any hurt feelings from it. We just want to make sure you've got a good service at the end of it.
So Andrew from Worcester has said they won't be afraid. He's also asked if we would like to be involved but aren't currently, can we request to join, or is it too late?
Sorry, I think I got a feeling we're still on the list, but if you're not, yes, certainly you can be involved. I'll just double check, Andrew, if you're on the list. At Worcester, you said, David?
I thought they were, but yeah, I've not sat in on these, so okay, we'll find out, Andrew. There was a question from Nick, which I think relates to the last slide on importances. What about the messaging which will accompany this development? What will it say if someone doesn't select an importance level?
So I haven't got the images to hand, but we did show them at the TFS, and I think the idea is if it doesn't select an importance level, it won't let them publish a list, and it gives them a message telling them you need to select an importance level. We've also changed a couple of screens around when you add items to move the importance level up the screen to make it easier to add that importance level, to make it more prominent when you're adding an item. So effectively, Nick, it will say something along the lines of, you can't publish this list as the following items don't have a importance level. For old lists, so someone's trying to add items to a list of maybe 100 items and none of them have importance levels, we are going to be adding a section by section importance where you can change all the items in one section. That's one of the things we talked about at the Insight event, and people didn't want lecturers to be able to select every single item in the list the same importance level for obvious reasons, but the compromise was that you could change all the books in one section, all the items in one section to the same importance level. So if you've got a list of 1,000 items and 15, 20 sections, at least it's not completely unmanageable.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, sounds like that's been well received. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention today. So again, this is something we've touched on a couple of previous product updates, but again, I'll just give background for those who aren't familiar. So at the moment, every Talis Aspire tenancy is linked to a Google Analytics property, which is what we call Universal Analytics. So that's like the traditional Google Analytics product. That is being retired at the end of June, so we're getting pretty close now, and Google is moving over everyone to Google Analytics 4. As we've mentioned on previous webinars, we have already created GA4 properties for every Talis Aspire institution, so they're already there gathering data. A lot of you have been asking in recent weeks, because of course the upcoming deadline sort of focuses minds a bit, well, what happens next? So what I can tell you is that last week we have arranged a webinar, which is called Moving to GA4. And we will be delivering this on June the 7th at 2 p.m. And if you go to talis.com/events, there's a link where you can book for that now. So what we'll be doing in that webinar is basically looking at the differences between GA4 and your current setup, and what may be possible in terms of setting up dashboards and what have you. We will be joined on that webinar by James Fisher from Leeds Beckett University, who's been working with us. We've given them early access to their GA4 property, and he's been sort of looking at putting together dashboards and things that he thinks library users will find useful. So if you do want to register for that in a couple of weeks' time, then we'll be, James will be showcasing what he's doing, and it will also give you a chance to ask us any questions you might have about the switch. There is also documentation being worked on at the moment. So there's a number of articles currently in draft in our support site, and obviously we'll be publishing those as and when you have access to your GA4 setup. There is a question here from Ian. Will a recording of the webinar be available as well for people who can't make it? Ian, yes, there will. So we'll record it and we will host it on the support site within a day or two of delivering that session. While we're talking about Google Analytics 4, you might remember that there was a service announcement went out a few weeks ago. And what we did in that service announcement, apologies, we actually provided a link to a Microsoft form, and we were asking for one person from each institution to fill out that form with details of who will need analytics to GA4 going forwards. And again, if I just come out of my slides for a moment, I can copy and paste this. And we'll stick it in the chat. The reason I mention that is that when I checked this morning, we had 61 people fill out that form, giving us details of who would need access to GA4 going forwards. We have closer to 100 people actually using Talis Aspire, so that tells us that a few people haven't completed it yet. So if no one from your form has, your institution has completed that form yet, if you can just follow that link and put in your details and tell us who will need access to Google Analytics for your institution, and we will get that set up. Question from Nick, can you confirm where to register for the Moving to GA4 webinar? Yep, if you go to talis.com/events, then you will see it among the various webinars that are listed there now. So yeah, more detail to follow on that in a couple of weeks' time. And that webinar will be myself, James from Leeds Beckett, and Tim Hodson. And Scott's already mentioned this, but just to talk about new team members as well, since we last spoke. So we have a new addition to the product team, which is Kate Broadfield, who joined us in mid-April. And some of you may already have spoken to her because she was at TFS Insight at the end of April, and she's also been joining the reviews calls this week. So some of you may have met her already, but if you haven't, she is now full part of the product team alongside Scott and Georgia. And as Scott mentioned, we've also added a couple of new people to the Talis Aspire development team since the last update as well. So we've got 2 extra developers working on Talis Aspire now. And obviously that just means we can go a little bit faster when we are looking at, you know, developing new features and integrations and what have you. Question, I'm sure I've filled out the Google Analytics form, but could you contact us if we haven't? Yeah, Chris, I'm sure that closer to the time we will be gently nudging those people that haven't filled it in already. And Hazel says the same thing. So yeah, I imagine around the time of the webinar, we will be reaching out to people that haven't completed it yet, because obviously we want to know from each institution who's going to require access to them. So I think that was it in terms of the agenda. We will pause for questions at the end if you need to ask about anything that we've covered today. While you're thinking about those and typing it in the chat, a couple of things to mention. So as ever, upcoming webinars that we have planned. So we've already talked about this moving to Google Analytics 4. That will be happening in a couple of weeks' time. I can also see that Hazel has been busy in the chat today. That's Hazel from Oxford Brookes. She has also agreed to deliver a community webinar for us on July the 12th. You can see the title on the slide there, Climbing the Mountain. Essentially, it is about academic engagement and how they have looked at revamping how they do that at Oxford Brookes. That session was originally delivered at Insight last month. It did prove very popular with people that were there, and academic engagement is one of those topics that we are always getting asked about on support calls. So we thought this would be a good opportunity actually to sort of roll it out to the wider user community and give you all a chance to ask your questions there as well. We should also be doing another product update webinar at the end of June. I haven't actually had a date confirmed for it yet, but obviously as soon as that is set up, we will be sharing the details through our newsletters and through service announcements, but we should be looking at the end of June. Jonathan, I'll get to your question in a moment. I'll just get through the rest of the slides. And just your usual reminder of how you can stay up to date with us. So I've mentioned the newsletters already. Those of you who were signed up, you'll be getting a monthly newsletter from us with details of new developments and links to upcoming webinars and what have you. And the next one is going out next week. As I say, that should also include links to recordings that we have from the TFS Insight event when it goes out. So do look out for that. We have the Talis blog with details of sort of new and interesting things we've been working on, or interesting case studies that we'd like to share with people. So do sort of bookmark that for regular visits. We've already showcased the talis.com/events page a few times already today, but yeah, just your reminder that that's where you can find details of upcoming webinars. And of course, all of our webinars are recorded on the support site, where you will also find details of product update articles, release information, and hopefully anything else you need to know about Talis Aspire. So that's all I had to say today. There is a question there from Jonathan. Could I ask what the time frame is for adding self-service admin functionality to Aspire? Being able to make routine changes like adding review outcomes, etc., would be much appreciated.
So yes, we're going to be adding self-service this year, but it won't have everything at once. So we'll start adding items of self-service, and it'll be something that will grow as we make more features available. Some of the features that David currently does for you, you can't simply switch them on for somebody. It's not that straightforward, unfortunately, so some will require a bit more work, but the idea is that the first one will be the branding, which it's pretty much ready to go, and then we'll be adding as we go through. Just every now and again there'll be a new feature in self-service that's filled out, but obviously we'll let people know as those are coming. And we tend to work in a sort of iterative way where we try and do releases on a regular basis, so you don't have to wait for all of the features to be there. You'll just get things as they become available.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Are there any more questions from anyone?
I don't know if Andrew saw my message, so I don't think it went to everyone, but just to let you know, Andrew at University of Worcester, we did send a message through to our contact there. We didn't get anything back, so we'll forward it on to you. so you can pick that up.
Okay, I'm just going to check the chat one more time. It looks like everyone has asked their questions. Nick says, thanks, very useful. You're welcome, Nick. Okay, and a thank you from Andrew.
Evelyn, we will be asking for the PO APIs at a later point, so no need for it yet. But if you, it's a search and retrieve APIs. So if some people may have to make some changes to their API service, which is very easy to do. It's like a service that you can use in the dashboard in Primo API, but we'll send out more details at a time. But it's really a quick change.
Okay, and there do not seem to be any more questions coming in. So yeah, thanks for your time, everyone. As I say, we'll likely be doing this again next month, but we'll be sending out details when we have them, and do register for any of the other webinars we mentioned in the meantime. And yeah, hopefully enjoy the rest of your sunny afternoons. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.